This is the biggest boy in the world. Jambik Hatorhof is 4 foot 3 inches tall and weighs 16 stone, as much as a baby elephant. Yet, astonishingly, Jambik is just 7 years old. Nobody knows why he's so big, or what it could mean for his health.
My child is not ill. He's just unique. If others think otherwise, that's up to them.
In this film, a leading British doctor travels to meet Jambik and his family and uncovers a far more disturbing story than he had imagined.
One of the things I wonder about is whether there's some gain for the family out of Jambik being so big, simply because it draws attention. Somehow we've got to convey the message to Nelia that what she's doing may be killing the boy.
This is Kabardino-Balkaria. A republic in the Caucasus Mountains in the far south of Russia. Just 70 miles from war-torn Chechnya, Kabardino-Balkaria is a wild and dangerous place, with a history of terrorism and kidnapping. Dr. Ian Campbell, one of the world's leading experts on obesity, is traveling over 2,000 miles in order to meet 7-year-old Jambik Hatorhof, the biggest boy in the world.
There are some concerns about going there, and there's a bit of apprehension. But I think that the potential to learn and contribute towards what's happening there is much greater. And for that reason, I'm quite excited about going.
Dr. Campbell first heard about Jambik when his story started to make headlines in the UK press. The boy's 16-stone size seemed to defy all medical explanation. As the founder of the National Obesity Forum and an advisor to doctors all over the world, Dr. Campbell was determined to take on Jambik's case.
My interest was sparked simply because he was a child that was so radically different to the others, even within the sort of obese children group. I was desperate to know, first of all, what an impact that was having on him, what his own physicians had done about it, if anything, and indeed what we could do to try and help the boy, if help is required.
This could be a challenge. In this poor and superstitious corner of the world, being big is not seen as a problem.
People around here, they don't think it's serious. They don't think he's a sick child. When they see Jambik, they spoil him.
As a Western doctor, Ian Campbell takes a very different view.
Very few of the obese people that I deal with in clinical practice want to be that way. They come and see me because they want it to be different.
Over the next week, Ian will observe Jambik to see if there are any clues in his everyday life that might explain his phenomenal weight. Then he plans to fly Jambik to a leading clinic in Moscow for specialist tests.
I think our visit to see Jambik is worthwhile if we can bring some of the knowledge that we in the West have developed towards why children are obese and what to do about it.
We are happy about arrival of the English doctor. We are very interested what he will say. because when they examined him, the Russian doctors found nothing wrong with him.
What I would like to convey to Jambik and his family is that here is a medical issue which has the potential to cause quite serious ill health at a very young age and severely impact on Jambik's quality and duration of life.
The arrival of the film crew is a good news, and I'm happy that Jambik is known in the UK.
Мы очень рады, что Джамбика узнают в Британии.
After travelling for 3 days, Dr. Campbell is now about to meet the biggest child in the world. A leading expert in obesity, Dr. Ian Campbell, is arriving in the remote Russian Republic of Kabardino-Balkaria to meet 7-year-old Jambik Hatohov, the heaviest boy in the world.
Hi.
Ian hopes he can unravel the medical mystery of why Jambik weighs 16 stone at just 7 years old.
You must be Jambik.
My name is Jambik.
Pleased to meet you, Jambik. My name is Ian. And you must
My
be
name is Mohammed.
Morka. Pleased to meet you.
Jambik dwarfs his older brother Muka, who at 14 is twice his age, but less than half his weight.
Jambik, you're taller than your brother,
Yeah.
and you're much bigger and stronger as well, I think, aren't you? Why is that?
Yeah.
According to his mother Nelia, Jambik eats normally and exercises every day. So Ian will have to consider if a hormonal imbalance or genetic condition can explain Jambik's weight. Ian's plan is to observe Jambik in his daily life before taking him to Moscow for tests. This morning, school starts with a PE class. For Ian, it's an opportunity to see how Jambik's fitness compares to his classmates.
He's very willing. But actually, he's not very able. And I found it quite distressing to see this 7-year-old boy who's so much larger than all his friends at school, not able to do the same things that they were doing. These movements weren't as sharp, they weren't as great, he couldn't go down on his hunches, he couldn't move as fast. I never saw him breaking sweat because there was no effort to run. It was all very sedentary, really.
But in maths class, Ian finds that Jambik is much more able.
He is a typical 7-year-old child to me. He works hard, always puts his hand up. Even at break times, he's practicing reading, sums. I'm pleased to have such a nice boy.
Jambik's assessment by his teacher is important to Ian's investigation. Most genetic disorders which cause overgrowth or obesity also cause learning difficulties or abnormalities like unusual head shape or extra fingers and toes. Jambik has none of these telltale signs.
From what I can see at the moment, I've got no reason to suspect any kind of genetic disorder as such. I mean, his intelligence seems to be normal. There's just nothing else to clue me in to make me think that there's some genetic disorder.
After school, Ian accompanies the family to the local market, where they get a startling reception.
A hero? Okay.
Jambik's size has earned him the nickname Sosruko, after an ancient hero from local mythology. Sosruko was a giant, a fierce warrior who protected his people. He embodied qualities people in the Caucasus greatly respect: strength and size.
So ask this lady, does he remind her of Sosruko? Talented meaning a fighter, a warrior. Okay. I certainly think that people identify him with this character Sosruko. They see him as being tough and strong and a prime example of how a local man should be. For free?
For free.
Oh. He's a fighter, he's a warrior, and as such he's celebrated and someone to be looked after and looked up to and given gifts. I don't think he's a hero. I think he's a disabled child. I think he's a kid that needs a lot of help and is in deep trouble from a health perspective. And I think that's under the surface, things are not good.
When Jambik was born on the 24th of September 1999, he weighed a perfectly normal 6 pounds 8 ounces. But almost immediately, he began to grow twice as fast as he should have done. At 1 year, he weighed as much as an average 6-year-old.
Ну, я, конечно, переживала, что почему он так прибавлял.
Of course, I was worried about him gaining so much weight. And the doctors were amazed that a child could weigh so much at just 1 year old.
There seemed no explanation. At 2 years, he weighed as much as an average 9-year-old, and by 3, as much as an average 12-year-old. Local people whispered he was like one of the legendary giants of the past.
In our ancient myths, there was a hero called Sosruko, a boy who grew bigger hour by hour. So Jambik was naturally compared to him.
Today, the most visible symbol of the Sosruko myth in Kabardino-Balkaria is a restaurant, named after the warrior and built in the shape of his head. The family take Ian for supper there. Ian is uncomfortable with Nelia's assessment of her son's fitness and suspects that Jambik is almost certainly overeating.
I'm intrigued by his food intake because, according to what Mum's telling me, he's consuming something like 2,000 calories a day. But to justify his physique, it needs to be somewhere approximating 3,000 a day. So now, why do you think, if the boys eat the same and exercise the same, that one is so slight and one is so large? Why does Jambik have so much more weight?
У каждого своя комплекция.
Okay, he's just different. Okay.
But as the meal continues, it becomes obvious to Ian that although Jambik's brother Muka has a healthy appetite, it is not as big as Jambik's. Now, for the first time, Nelia asks Ian a question.
I've seen a lot of very large children. I think Jambik is probably just about the biggest child that I've seen.
So far, Ian's investigations have told him that Jambik is probably eating too much and exercising too little. But none of this alone can explain why this 7-year-old boy weighs 16 stone. It's all leading Ian to wonder whether Nelia has any real incentive to reduce Jambik's weight gain.
What I've seen so far is a 7-year-old boy who does normal 7-year-old things.
Я бы хотела много плавать.
although kids want attention, they also actually want to be like the rest of the pals. They want to be accepted as one of the gang. And he's clearly not one of the gang. Coming in. Oh, that's nice, actually.
Whoa!
Is really unfit. I'm not so sure that he's eating healthily all the time, as his mum says, that he's as physically active as she says, because, quite honestly, the evidence just doesn't support those statements. One of the things I wonder about is whether Mum has another agenda, whether there's some gain for the family out of Jambik being so big, simply because it draws attention. And one of her questions to me yesterday was, is he the biggest child you've ever seen? And initially I thought, this is because she wants to know if I can help. On reflection, I think it was because she wanted me to reassure her that Jambik was indeed the biggest boy in the world.
Nelia's troubles began long before Jambik was born. She grew up in an impoverished village during the dying years of the Soviet Empire. She's twice divorced. The second time, her husband left her for another woman when she was 7 months pregnant with Jambik. Nelia is sure she knows why.
It so happens that they use black magic to get husbands to leave their families. That was what happened. The woman and her mother put a spell on my husband, and he forgot that I was pregnant, that I was due to give birth. He forgot about everything.
As a single mother in a traditional Islamic culture, Nelia was in danger of becoming an outcast. In a town with 90% unemployment and with no means of financial support, she and her sons might even starve.
I was very worried about the fact that we were living in a communal flat. We had 2 rooms then, and I didn't have a job.
But then Jambik's fame began to spread. His status as the biggest boy in the world has made him a global celebrity. He has been on Russian national TV, Czech and Georgian TV, and on Germany's most popular news show. He's even been flown to Japan to be on TV.
He likes being filmed, and he's never been against it.
Since around the age of 3, Jambik has been weightlifting and wrestling, popular sports amongst boys in the Caucasus. Now, his life's ambition is to be a sumo wrestler.
Our hope is that Jambik will provide a secure future for our family. And I must say that what we have now, we have thanks to Jambik.
Ian Campbell is less optimistic. Unless Jambik loses weight soon, he is convinced that the boy will soon succumb to life-threatening illnesses, like heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Ian needs to find out what tests have been carried out on Jambik so far. He's arranged to meet the specialist responsible for Jambik at the local children's hospital. Dr. Yelena Dishkova is just as concerned about Jambik's health as Ian is. In 2003, she referred Jambik to a specialist hospital in Moscow. Nelia took him to Moscow, but didn't turn up for the appointment.
К сожалению, он оказался не в той больнице, а в больнице, куда мы его не посылали, и в отделение совершенно не приспособленное для обследования этих детей. И дали заключение, что ребенок здоров, может заниматься любой физической нагрузкой и рекомендовано занятие борьбой с сумо.
The doctor explained to me that it was simply his constitution. He looked at us and he said that in Kabardino-Balkaria there are such warriors, and that Jambik was one of those people who had been born a warrior.
Dr. Dishkova then produces notes of tests performed in 2003, which show that when he was 3, Jambik's bones developed from normal to those of a 7-year-old in the space of 6 months.
Меня смутил вот этот скачок не столько в росте и весе, сколько скачок в костном возрасте, который подтверждался на рентгенологических снимках. За полгода ребенок увеличить костный возраст за 4 года не мог.
Although there are rare genetic conditions that result in accelerated bone age in children, Ian is aware that one possible cause is anabolic steroids.
My question really is, do you think that Mum is doing something to Jambik to make him so big so that the family can earn money from it?
Ну, вообще-то это как-то, ну, я не знаю, как это прокомментировать.
Right now I'm feeling a bit nauseous. I'm shaken by the implications of what I've heard. I think at some point we need to confront Nelia that there's some suspicion, just looking at the evidence, that he's been given anabolic steroids to get him into this situation, that is already causing problems and will ultimately lead to very significant disease. And I think his future is very bleak if the status quo were to remain.
Jambik Hatorhov weighs 16 stone at just 7 years old. With his mother Nelia and 14-year-old brother Muka, he sets off for Moscow to have extensive medical tests. British obesity expert Dr. Ian Campbell is investigating Jambik's case. He will deliver them to the specialists who will conduct the tests. Jambik, Nelia and Muka are staying at one of Moscow's most famous hotels. A 1950s skyscraper built under Stalin. It's a far cry from their apartment in the Caucasus. Nelia is equally excited by the opportunities that Moscow offers for advancing Jambik's sporting and celebrity career.
I hope that in Moscow some producer or trainer will meet with Jambik and take him under his wing and mold his career for the future.
Nelia is not expecting that the tests will provide any new insights into Jambik's condition.
И я не считаю, что мой ребенок,
I don't think my child is ill or unhealthy.
что ему не здоровится.
He's simply a unique person.
Уникальным ребенком.
And if others think otherwise, that's up to them.
Для меня не важно.
Dr. Ian Campbell is concerned that Nelia doesn't appreciate how serious Jambik's health problems are.
I think, unfortunately, all the pointers that I've had so far would indicate that she's got no desire to change her current situation whatsoever. I think she's got no desire to change Jambik's physical state. I think there's too much to be gained from continuing this way. I think in a cultural, in a financial sense, there's a heck of a lot for her and her boys to lose. And I think at this point, that's a greater force. I think my job is to sensitively point out to her the repercussions of continuing as we are, and somewhere, somehow, we've got to convey the message to Nelia that what she's doing may be killing the boy.
Ian has arranged for the test to take place at Russia's leading private hospital. Dr. Natalia Belova is a pediatric geneticist there. She's agreed to help Ian and to carry out the medical tests on Jambik. She meets up with him at the hotel, where he explains the difficulties of the case.
One of the first things that I would say is that some of the things I might discuss with you are probably best not shared with his mum. And so there are certain things which it might be better to keep from her at the moment. Do you understand that? Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. She's only asked me...
Ian takes Dr. Belova through the medical data and explains his observations about the family.
I think that with the information we have, we may rule out some most common genetic syndromes. Probably mother was happy with the additional attention to this child. She might do some things to keep him in this condition. Yeah. And if it's possible, I would check for anabolic steroids.
Yeah. Have you ever come across anabolic steroids being used in children before?
Yes, it's not the first case. I would have tests done, and after that maybe we can see what we can do to improve the situation, because it's rather critical for the child right now.
The doctors agree on a comprehensive range of tests to try to solve the mystery of Jambik's growth once and for all. However, for the time being, Ian must return to his patients in Britain.
And this is Nelia.
He'll be back once he has the results from Jambik's tests.
Bye, Jambik. Take care. Okay. See ya.
До свидания. Счастливо вам.
As Ian heads off to the airport, Jambik faces a grueling day at Dr. Belova's exclusive private clinic. There, he is starved of food during the tests, which last for 8 hours. Dr. Belova's clinic is the most state-of-the-art in Russia. This is the best chance to date of establishing why this 7-year-old boy weighs so much.
Никаких больше нет выписок, да? Когда-нибудь на такой, да?
One thing that's immediately clear is that Jambik's heart is struggling to support his body. And doctors warn Nelia against making him do any strenuous exercise.
You can see for yourself how hard it is for me, whether it's good or bad having a child like that. On the one hand, it's good having a special child, but on the other hand, at times like this, it can be really difficult.
Нет, мы это понимаем. Нет, она просто не хочет делать сейчас вообще брать.
From X-rays, Dr. Belova notices the advanced bone age, first identified by Jambik's local doctors. She decides to talk to Nelia about it.
Сейчас я посмотрела на его костный возраст, и у меня какие-то возникли вопросы, потому что костный возраст очень сильно опережает. Вот меня смущало только то, потому что я думаю о том, что у него есть нарушение регуляции. Это довольно тревожный признак. Это значит, что есть что-то, вырабатывающее лишние гормоны. Это не норма, это болезнь. Это серьезная болезнь, и нам надо ее поискать. Просто про лекарства, может быть, вы расскажете то, что можете, а потом мы поговорим отдельно. Какие-нибудь выписывали лекарства ему для улучшения мышц, например?
Я говорю, я ему давала только лекарства от кашля, от бронхита, когда он заболевает, или кашляет, или горло болит. Только вот эти лекарства.
Для мышц ничего? Для силы?
Ну, я это не стала. Вот, как полное обследование вот такого серьезного, как сейчас проводят, я ничего не принимаю.
The tests are finished. Back home in Britain, Ian receives the test results. There's no conclusive proof of steroid abuse or a genetic disorder, although X-rays do show that Jambik's bone development is that of a 13-year-old. For Ian, this is a significant finding.
Something other than just simple morbid obesity is happening here. The X-ray shows increased bone age of about the age of a 12 or 13-year-old. That may also be explained by the regular use of anabolic steroids. Somewhere between the ages of 2.5 and 3, something changed. And the only thing that I can think of that could last for a short period of time and then be stopped is not a medical phenomenon, it's an anabolic steroid phenomenon. And I may be wrong, but at this point, I can't explain it in any other way. As a doctor, I assume that what I'm told is the truth. What I assume is that people have a desire to make things better, and then I'm presented with all the evidence. And yet so much of this conflicts, so much of it just doesn't tie up. What I do know is that the use of anabolic steroids in children this young is not an unknown phenomenon in this part of Russia. And that, in many ways, would make all the pieces of the puzzle fit.
Although a steroid test on Jambik shows up negative, in practice it's difficult completely to rule out the use of steroids, as all traces of the drugs leave the body 2 weeks after being taken. Neither can the tests rule out a genetic disorder. Meanwhile, whilst they wait for the results, the family are making the most of their time in Moscow. Despite warnings from Dr. Belova that Jambik shouldn't do strenuous exercise, Nelia takes him to the best sumo club in Russia.
The doctor who examined us last time, he recommended taking up sumo. We don't have the test results back from yesterday. It's too early to judge. Doctors want to cut him off from society. I don't. As his mother, I want him to make the most of all life has to offer.
After the session, the sumo trainer tells Nelia that he's so impressed by Jambik that he'll try and arrange sponsorship.
Прежде всего, чтобы свой этот кабардинский вот это народ, чтобы он достоин.
We hope that he will bring honor to our country.
Надеемся, что
in the future, we hope that life will be better than now, that Jambik's dreams will come true, or I can make them come true.
И чтобы Илья смогла ему исполнять.
Dr. Ian Campbell has returned to Moscow with the test results in order to make one final attempt to persuade Nelia that whatever the cause, her son is dangerously unhealthy and must lose weight. But he's expecting that she'll be very hard to convince.
I think what I'd like to do with Nelia is present her with the facts about Jambik's current state of health and help her realise that she's pretty much the only person that's in a position to help him. What's most important is to go from this point forward to see what we can do to help Jambik to resolve the situation. Because what I've seen is a mother who loves her son, I think if she will open up to that possibility, then maybe she'll decide that things need to change.
Dr. Ian Campbell has returned to Moscow for a final meeting with Nelia Kabardakova, mother of Jambik, the 7-year-old boy who weighs 16 stone. Despite no conclusive evidence, Dr. Campbell thinks that the most likely cause of Jambik's 16-stone bulk is anabolic steroid abuse. But most pressing is that Nelia refuses to accept that Jambik is dangerously unhealthy.
How is Moscow this time?
Before he can present her with his findings, Ian goes to Dr. Belova to discuss anabolic steroids in the light of the recent test results. It turns out that she's revised her opinions.
I thought about it. Now I don't think it's likely. I saw many children with advanced bone age due to genetic syndromes. Yeah, so that's why I think that maybe genetic reasons are more likely. So that's actually all I have to say. Unfortunately, I cannot say that, well, I know what is this. I do not know what is this. I can only guess.
Dr. Belova believes that if Jambik was being given steroids, then these should have triggered early puberty. But Ian has consulted specialists in Britain and understands that a short course of steroids could trigger rapid growth without any of these side effects, although he can't prove this is what happened in Jambik's case. In the end, Jambik may just have a unique condition, as Nelia has always maintained.
I'm his mother. I know best what needs to be done for him. Different doctors take different views, and I can't listen to all their advice.
Doctors do agree that, whatever its cause, Jambik's weight is seriously harming his health, and that Nelia must be persuaded to make him lose weight. Ian resolves one last time to try to convince her. Jambik and Muka have never been on a boat before, so Ian decides to take the family on a tourist boat that cruises up and down the Moscow River.
It's very hard for me. I've met Nelia. It's very hard for me to think that something wrong has been done here. I don't see this as a mum who is willfully harming her son. I think it may be the case of a mum who's doing what she thinks is in the best interests of both her sons and herself to give them a better chance in life.
The boat is not just for Jambik and Muka's benefit.
We'll be able to sit down in an enclosed space in privacy, and it's somewhere where if the situation does get a bit heated, then there's no room for either of us to storm off, and we'll have to talk. When I put all the evidence together, what it makes me think is that Jambik is a boy who is likely to be obese in any case because of his constitution, but who, in all probability, at some point has been given something to make him bigger and stronger. And it made me think that possibly, around about the age of 2.5 to 3, he'd been given anabolic steroids to promote that growth.
Абсолютно никаких препаратов. Вот кроме таблеток от кашля, он сильнее таблеток вот с момента рождения никогда не получил. Честно вам об этом признаюсь.
Okay. Is it at all possible, conceivable, that the coach, when he goes to train, could be giving him something?
Там такой тренер, который доброжелательный, так настолько его любил, там он вообще, что, такого не может быть никогда.
Okay. Fine. It's very important to me that I get from you some kind of understanding that his health is seriously at risk. I don't think at this point he should be training to be a sumo wrestler. It's too dangerous. What he needs to do is to become much fitter first, and then at some point, maybe because of his strength, move into some form of exercise level. And that's why I'm really urging you to maybe you do need to get professional help. I know you want to help him, you can't do it on your own. But what I'm confident of is that if that doesn't happen, Jambik's future doesn't look very good indeed, and he will become very sick very soon.
Я абсолютно на это не согласна еще раз. В дальнейшем я не считаю, что он не должен спортом заниматься. Раньше же рождались такие большие люди, обладающие уникальной силой, и все. И при этом никакие врачи, никакие эти не присутствовали, они жили и жили долго и счастливо. Кто знает, а почему ты такой худой, а почему такая толстая? У каждого свой индивидуальный подход, как они созданы, так они и есть.
Nobody can change him. God created him so big. That's why he's big.
Yeah. I think that is probably correct.
Доктор считает, что это может быть самое правильное решение.
It's the end of Dr. Campbell's journey. He's now done all he can. After a quick goodbye, he has no choice but to leave.
Bye, Jambi. Take care.
Ian will ensure that his theories are shared with the doctors in Jambik's hometown.
For the time being, that's it. I don't think there's anything else I can do. Actually, I don't think there's anything else anyone can do. I think now he is hell-bent on him having a life as a sportsman, and I think she's prepared to do whatever it takes to get him there, apart from put his own personal needs first.
И что ребенок абсолютно здоров, это вот врач не может никакой не встать и не сказать, что он, если даже он такой большой, что он такой, ну что здоровый ребенок. Почему они не могут это говорить? Вот это меня, не знаю, как это объяснить даже. Почему? Если ребенок, если человек большой, он не может быть здоровым.
What we haven't managed to do is turn things around for Jambik's sake, and that's deeply sad. The whole media circus that surrounds Jambik really just compounds the problem. I don't think it would stop the situation, because there's still something to be gained from him being, at least having the appearance of something athletic. It suits his local culture. But I do think that the media attention they get just feeds the problem and ultimately makes it worse.
Starting next over on E4, Michelle has had enough of Tony, but when a new man hoves into view, Tony's not going to give up without a fight in Skins. Next here on Channel 4, a millionaire's son is abducted. Tense drama in Kidnapped.